Okay, today I'm going to show you how to thread the Juki m0-735 serger. The Juki will take any type of universal or ballpoint or sharp microtex Schmidt's needles for a regular sewing machine. Use the appropriate size for the project you're working on. I generally use the 80-12s when I start. Okay, first off, to open the serger, the front cover of the serger, you slide it to your right and bring it down. And most of the tools that you'll need for setting up threading are here in the front of the machine. I find it easier to, when I'm going to thread the machine, to bring the knife blade up and out of the way. To do that, you push the upper knife over,
let me zoom in.
turn it around.
Let me zoom in right there. Okay, go ahead.
And then pull this white lever in the back, and that pushes us all the way up out of your way. The other thing I find handy to do is to get it out of my way. It makes threading and changing needles easier. Is I pop the foot off, and there's a little button on the back here that you just push and it releases. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up for your standard 4-thread overlock, because it uses all of the lower, well, most of the lower loopers and your needles, so that once you can thread those, you can change to different functions, no problem. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is put a couple needles in. We'll get our needles out.
40.
With this serger, there's 2 needle positions. The front 3 positions are for when you're doing chain stitch or cover stitch, and these back 2 positions, which we'll be using now, are for your overlock stitches. Each of these have their little tiny screws, and the screwdriver will easily open them. And when they're not in use, you want to make sure that they're snugged down, because the vibration of the machine can cause them to fall out, and then you will lose your needles. There's a handy tool on the end of the brush, the cleaning brush, that will hold the needle to help you position it. Remember, the flat side goes to the back. And I kind of just feel around until I get one. I think this one's the left one. And then you want to tighten, sorry about the dog. Then you want to gently tighten this back up. And then again.
Okay, show the tool again. Let me focus on that tool right there. Just hold it still.
This is the tool, and you just slip the needle in the hole there, and then you orient the flat part of the needle towards the back of the machine. And you can see how having the foot off and the knife blade up really helps with your clearance. One thing I want you to be aware of is these needles are not even. They're offset a little bit. And you'll notice that with the cover stitch / chain stitch needles also. The important thing is when you push these in, to make sure that you push them all the way up. We're going to start with threading the machine. And when we get back around to the front view of the machine, I'll show you how it's numbered in the order that you're supposed to thread the machine. And I find it easier initially when I'm setting up for a project to set up with the colors of thread that coordinate with the needles, because then that way it makes it easier for me to figure out if I need to change my tensions or anything. So with this machine, one of the things I should show you is the telescoping thread control will flatten down. When you pull it up, the top does come off. You want to gently twist it to make sure that it's locked into place so that it resists going down when you're serging. All right, in the back part of this machine, for whether it's a looper or a needle thread, is going to be all the same. You're going to make sure that and with the cones, you want to make sure and have the cone holder on, because you don't want vibration of your thread. So you're going to come up and go over the thread guide that's directly above the cone of thread you're using. Now this is a really important part here, is you have to come around and behind. Let me take this spool off so you can see it a little bit better.
Let me zoom in and focus here real quick. Okay.
These are the first part of the tension disc. And you always want to make sure the pressure foot's up too. I had that down for when I was putting the needles in. At any rate, you want to take the end of the thread to your right and make a loop, and you want to zigzag it back and forth in there to make sure that it really snaps into this tension disc. That's very important. If it's not in there correctly, your tensions will never balance out.
Okay.
All right, after you get it in that back tension, you're going to want to lay it in the tension disc in the front. And these are the numbers that I was referring to. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's always the order that you're going to want to thread in. And if this upper looper ever breaks, you have to unthread your needles and do this one, rethread your looper, then rethread your needles again. Okay, this machine in some respects is really easy because it's color coded all the way through. So you put it through this front thread guide, and then there's a thread guide here. There's a thread guide here, and there's arrows. I don't know if you can see those on the video, but you'll see them when you're playing with the machine, that guide you through the thread path. And then there's another thread guide here that you want to pop up and into. And then lastly, there's going to be this thread guide here that you want to pop into. Sorry. It goes from the back. And it just pops in. Now I usually thread my sergers or my loopers without using the dental floss helpers. Okay, you can take and thread the end of a dental floss through the hole in the looper. Then take your thread and bring it through that loop and reach from behind. Oops, sorry, it came out. Try that again. Through the hole in the looper, bring your thread through that loop, then reach behind and pull it through.
So move your hands.
Okay, you also have these handy little tweezers if you need, and that's actually what I like to do. Now you need to make sure that this thread isn't caught on anything, that it comes straight through to this looper and isn't hung up on any of these other mechanisms down here in the serger.
Okay.
Okay, next we'll be threading the lower looper. And same process, you put through the thread guide above the spool, keeping your thread to your right. Slip it into this back tension disc, again seesawing to make sure that it's all the way in. Lay it through the tension, and then I'm going to move to the front of the machine. And again, just like with the upper looper, you're going to follow the thread guides, and they're color coded. Through this one here, through this one here, following the arrows around. I'll go back and do that one again. Through this back thread guide, following the arrows around, and pop it up into this one. And then with the lower looper, there's a helper. The first thing you have to do is thread this thread guide here, and it comes from left to right. Then there's a white button here. You push that down, and that accesses the looper for you. This is the tricky part. I don't know if you can see on the camera, there's a little slot here. Can you see that, Robin?
I don't know.
Right here, there's a little slot here. You need to guide your thread back. It's actually easier with the tweezers. And through that slot. Once it's in that slot, I don't know if you can see that on the camera.
Your hand is in the way you're...
Once it's in that slot, then you just push this white button back up again. And then this has gotten caught under here. There we go. Then what you're going to thread is this lower looper here. And this time, you want to make sure your dental floss helper, which sometimes it's a little challenging. goes over this upper looper.
Remember, I can edit this all out.
Okay. There we go. You want it going just at that angle right there. Then again, you just put your thread through the loop on the dental floss threader. You reach from the back, pull it through. Make sure you're not hung up on any of the other loopers. Now your bottom thread path is threaded. Okay. Okay, now we're going to thread the right hand needle. Again, you go through the thread guide directly above the spool. Again, keeping your unthreaded end towards the right. Seesaw in through that tension disc. Lay it down through this top tension disc. And this time we're following the turquoise or the green markings. Okay, you just come through here. You go across here. This is much like a traditional sewing machine. Notice your green dot is at this level, so you go through there. Now here it's a little interesting.
Okay, I'm recording.
All right, again you come through the thread guide, and it's very similar to a traditional sewing machine. Under the thread guide, down through following your green dots, and then you're going to lay it in this thread guide here, and this one you're just going to, there's another thread guide here, you just want to go behind this far end right here, and then you thread your needle. I don't know if I can do this from this angle. I put my presser foot down for this stuff. It just makes a little bit more room to work with. But when you go to your next thread, you need to remember to put it back up again. Okay, thread your needle. Grab the back with the tweezers. And again, pull it to the back of the machine. All right. The left needle is similar. You go through the thread guide, seesaw through that back tension, lay in your front tension. This time you're following the yellow dots.
Okay.
Okay, following the yellow dots around the thread guide. This one goes up to the top. And then this one goes in the far left one. And again, it just lays over this back one like the first needle thread. And that's, we thread our needle. Okay, once it pokes through, you grab it with your tweezers. And pull it through to the back of the machine. Okay, now we're going to put the presser foot back on. You want to make sure your threads are off to the right so that they're out of the way. You bring this back in from the right, and you'll notice when you're doing it, if you raise the presser foot up, it gives you a little extra clearance, and you want to line this bar up with this slot there, and if you get it just a little bit in front, push down and kind of pull forward, it locks itself in. Okay, then you want to make sure these threads are off to the left of the machine. The next thing you're going to want to do is to remember to put your knife back down. The first thing you do is push this white button here. Then you push the needle, I'm sorry, it's sliding. Push to the right and twist it back around. Now you're already set. Next thing you want to do is for the stitch that you're using, in the book there's a whole stitch chart, and it will tell you what settings that you want to start at. So for the left needle, the yellow path, it says tension 3 to 5. I always start in the middle, and then that way if I need to make adjustments up or down, it's easier. Right needle, again, is 3 to 5, so I set it at 4. Upper looper, the blue, is 3 to 5, so you set it at 4. Lower looper, red, is 3 to 5, and again, you set it at 4. Then the next thing it's going to tell you is the stitch length. What I'm going to set is the stitch length, which in the book, the basic setting is 2.5. So you have this knob that you can turn and set at 2.5. This knob here is your differential feed. For most purposes, it's going to be on in for normal, which means everything's working at the same time. All right. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to adjust your cutting width. And most things are going to be 3. And so it's where this button lines up with the groove here. And this knob just turns. And so we have it set at 3. You probably can't see that with the camera, but there's a little 3 there. All right. Now we're going to close everything up. And this machine will not sew unless this cover's closed. Okay. Next thing, there's this little handy catcher, thread catcher that just sits on there that will catch all your scraps as you're cutting. Before I actually put material under, I will do 1 or 2 turns of the hand wheel, always turning towards you, to make sure that there's stitches forming, and you can see those forming back in here. Then I take a sample of the fabric that I'm going to be sewing on, or a scrap of fabric that I'm going to be sewing on. And start sewing away.
You gotta move your left hand.
And you can just chain off. And you can't see it on the machine, but there's a cutter on the back of the machine. And you can see here you have your 4-thread overlock stitch. I tighten up the tension on the right a little bit to make it perfect, but this is definitely acceptable.
How can you tell?
There's pictures in the book that show you, but you can see that we're looping a little bit here, so your looper tensions could be a little bit tighter and you'd have a cleaner edge. Okay, now we're going to set the machine up to do a chain or cover stitch. So the first thing we're going to do is, again, we're going to take and raise the knife blade, pull this lever forward and push it up out of your way. We're going to again take the foot pedal off, presser foot, and set it to the side. Then the next thing that we have to do is we have to inactivate this upper looper in order to do a chain or cover stitch. You do that by turning the hand wheel towards you till the needles are in the lowest position, and then you push this black lever right here towards the left of the, the right of the machine, and that will lock this down and keeps it out of your way. And while we're here, it shows you in the diagram, there are 2 oiling points on this machine. One is at this joint here, and the other one is at this joint here, and I've just oiled them so they'll be good for a while. Okay, the other thing we have to do is we have to take this part of the cover plate off, and you just release this and gently pull it to the side. It will be replaced by this plate here, but I don't do that till the very last because otherwise it gets in my way. All right, we're going to move to the back of the machine now. All right, now we're going to thread the lower looper for the chain stitch or cover stitch. You put your spool of thread on this far spool holder, go up to the thread guide directly above it. It's got a little purple dot. Then in this one you also go through the thread guide back here. It also has a little purple dot. Then you go down to this tension disc here, and you just slide it in front to, right to left to right. All right, now we're going to stop because we need to turn the machine. Once you have that back thread guide on the back of the machine threaded, you open this cover and it just gently pulls open. Then you're going to want to bring your thread forward. And I don't know if you can see it on the camera, there's a small
Can't see it from this angle.
There's a thread guide there, and you just have to pop it up and over. And there it goes, up and over. You just want to be on the right side of that metal bar back there. Now this thread path's a little bit trickier on this side. We're going to first go through this thread guide, around the tension disc, back through this thread guide, and then through this guide. All right, so through this tension disc, or thread guide, excuse me, thread guide, around the tension disc, through this thread guide, and through this thread guide. While you're here, you'll notice this has an H, an M, and an L on it. And this is the tension for this lower looper. It generally stays on M, and you don't have to mess with it. Now the next part of this, to me, was the hardest part to learn on this machine. You're going to bring the thread through this thread guide, then you're going to turn around and go back behind, and there's a wheel like this on the other side. You're going to lay it along that. Okay, so you come through this thread guide, back, around, and over. All right, let me turn the machine a little bit more.
Recording.
Once you've come back and around, there's a thread guide right here you want to pop into.
Your head's in the way.
Sorry. You pop into that. And there's a hole right here, and you want to thread that from machine side out. Okay, so machine side out. If you're threading for a chain stitch, you're also going to want to thread this little pigtail, and you just go around the back of it. And it will pop in. Now since we're threading for cover stitch, we don't want that threaded, so we leave that out. Then the next thing you do is you take this white button here, you pinch it and pull the lower looper, the chain stitch or cover stitch looper, down so you have access. The bottom hole of the looper you thread from the back of the machine out. Top one, the top hole of the looper, you go from the front of the machine to the back. You leave about 4 inches of thread, which I just cut usually there, and then you push this back up in there, and that's how this side of the machine is threaded. And you close this back up, and that's all ready to go. All right, now for the chain stitch needles or cover stitch needles, it's not these 2 back positions, it's these 3 front positions. So we have to take our other needles out. And don't forget to tighten that little screw back up because it will vibrate out. I personally haven't lost one, but people in class have. Now you can use all 3 for a 4-thread cover stitch, but I'm just going to do the 2 outer ones for a wide cover stitch. The concept is the same. So we're going to make sure we have this right one all the way in. And you can use any 2 needle positions, and it will just give you a different positioning or width on your fabric. You can use that little needle tool if you want. I just find my fingers work really well. And again, just like on the back needles, these needles are a little bit uneven. And if you had the 3rd one in, it would be in between these 2. Okay, now we're going to thread the needles for the cover stitch. And as I said, we've got the two wide needles. So we've got the right needle and the left needle. This is for a wide cover stitch. This makes a nice hem for the bottom of a t-shirt. Okay, so we start with needle number 1, which is going to be the right needle. And again, the back tension disc. And this time we're following the pink marks. So we come down across the bottom channel, around this thread guide, and all the way to the top where it's the pink. And then the first pink one just goes in this first thread slot here. The right needle is the right one. Oops. And then it goes to the far right here. Move this down just a little bit, it makes it easier to get in. And then behind this bar here. So you're coming across, up, around just the first guide here, the far right guide here behind the bar, and then we're going to thread the needle. Okay, as you thread the needle, once it pokes through, grab your tweezers and bring it all the way through to the back of the machine. And don't forget to put the presser foot back up. Without it there as a visual, it makes it a little difficult. All right, now we're going to thread the left needle. Same process. You come up over the top, zigzag through those tension discs, and again we're following the pink thread path, but we're doing the left pink thread. So down through here, up, over, and this time, since it's the left needle, we're going to this far left one. And again, since it's the left one, we're going into this left one here. And then behind the bar. So again, it's down, up, and over, far left, behind the bar. And then you put the presser foot down to give you a little bit more clearance. And as this pokes through, grab it with your tweezers. And pull it through to the back of the machine. Now again, we're going to put our presser foot back on. So we want to have the threads over to the right so they're out of your way. Again, you come in from at a little bit of an angle. Line up this bar with the notch on the presser foot holder and just kind of jiggle it till it gets into position. Raise this. Now in this case we're going to leave our knife blade locked up because we don't want to cut with the cover stitch. Now this plate, I always have to position this, get it oriented before I open it. You hold this out of the way and slide it into place. Now this piece is very tricky. This is the part that tells the machine that this cover's closed. So this one doesn't fit not quite as snug as this, so you kind of have to hold it as you're closing it to get it in the right position. If ever you've done that and the machine won't start, it's because that hasn't engaged that, so you just start that process over again. Threading the machine, Unlike the overlock stitch, the chain stitch and cover stitch must be started initially on fabric. So put a scrap of your fabric underneath the presser foot in line with the needles and start sewing. Now you can chain off the fabric, but you don't want to pull on it. Okay, after you finish stitching, you'll notice you have 2 rows of stitching on the front, and when you flip it over, you have a zigzag stitch behind on the back side between the 2 needle threads. And this is what finishes your edge, finishes your seam. Okay, when you're done with your cover stitch or chain stitch, there's things that you have to do to put the machine back to overlock stitching. First thing is you have to take this cover off and replace it with the flat one. The next thing is you have to re-engage this upper looper. You bring your needle bar to the far lowest position, and then you kind of push down and pull forward, and that re-engages your upper looper. There's a few stitches like 2-thread or 3-thread overlock that will require this position
Let me
called
zoom in on that.
the upper looper converter.
Okay.
And this is a little tricky, and you want to bring this down. They tell you in the book to bring it all the way to the lowest position. I find it's a little better to have it come back up just a little bit to give you more room to work with. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is this just sets on there, but then you have to swivel it around to where it locks down on this pin. And if it doesn't lock there, it will come off while you're sewing. Then you take this part, this wire part, and gently push it back to where the little point sticking out of it goes into the hole of the upper looper. And what that does is it allows the thread path to just go back and forth on this wire and make those 2 or 3 thread stitches without this looper getting in its way. To take it off, you just gently push that back out and lift out and up, and it stores right here in the door, and it's kind of fussy. Okay, and all your other tools fit back in here. So you're ready for the next time. I hope this helps you out. Thank you.